Everyone says that the Steam Deck OLED is near perfect, and I'm starting to have some regrets. So I wanted to make an honest breakdown of whether do I regret buying the Steam Deck? Because yes, it is amazing, but also it's not perfect. One of the things that got me thinking about whether the deck was for me was its controller layout. It looked weird. It just didn't look right compared. There was some serious doubt in my mind because, the alternative for me was the Legion OS. That had a bigger screen, so, big is always better, isn't it? Another big gripe of the deck for me was I wasn't going to be able to play any multiplayer games. I love playing my Battlefield, my Call of Duties, Fortnite with my children, and I knew that the deck would not give me that. And, I spent a lot of my time on multiplayers, so it left me thinking. Another big factor between this was, well, am I actually going to play the device? Because, I've had a Portal. I hadn't played it all that much. I've maybe played the Portal a couple of hours, and do I really want to be spending another chunk of money on a Steam Deck, which could end up at the Portal just sat there gathering dust? Another reason why I was debating getting the Steam Deck, well, I didn't have a Steam library as such. I had my football managers, but I didn't have a vast library of games. These are all thoughts that I had in my mind before delving into the Steam Deck. After reading more and more about the Steam Deck, I realised that this was going to be the handheld for me. I accepted the fact that I wasn't going to be playing the latest AAA games, and also the fact that multiplayer games wasn't going to be happening for me. But in the back of my mind, I thought that could only be a good thing. But the second I booted up the Steam Deck, all my worries disappeared. So the suspend and resume feature on the Steam Deck is magical. This is one of the things I've missed going from Xbox to PS5. The Xbox's quick resume feature is a lifesaver. The amount of times, I could turn a game off and come back to it and jump straight into it was brilliant. I wish the PS5 had this, but alas, it hasn't. But using it on the Steam Deck, wow, it is fantastic. If I need to go and do something, I just tap the button on the deck and off it goes to sleep. Do what I need to do, come back, tap the power button, and back gaming, picking up instantly where I left off. Amazing for any busy person. SteamOS is also way easier to use than I thought. I'm not used to PCs. SteamOS just makes it so much easier to use. The fact that it's just like a console, so coming from the Xbox PS5, coming straight over to a Steam Deck, the OS just makes that transition a breeze. I think that's why it's such a great device for newcomers to handheld gaming like myself. Games I was going to be playing on there run better than I thought. I think my previous experience of handheld with the Switch, where things didn't look too great, then the Portal, where, yeah, there was often input delay, or there'll be bad, image quality, it was very blocky, and, I couldn't get a good gaming session. But the deck, they just work. Download the game, boot it up, and I'm playing. And, there's no latency, there's no lag, it just works. Thanks to Deck Verified, or websites like ProtonDB, and an iOS app called, I think it's Deck Settings, I know which games are going to run well on my deck and how to tweak them to get the best out of them. Brilliant. I haven't got to go looking for how to get the best out of these games. I know I can go to one place and I know that it's going to be working. And also that, the deck does fit my life perfectly. I know that I've got 10 to 20 minutes that, I can progress in a story. So the other night, people were busy, sorting out the children. I knew I had 10, 20 minutes. So I hopped on Mad Max and I just chilled on the couch playing it. And I just thought, I don't get this on the PlayStation. I'm chilling on the sofa right now, playing Mad Max, progressing, traveling through the barren wasteland. 10, 20 minutes flew by. I had to go and have the kids. Again, I used quick suspend and I was off. Did my job, come back on. Brilliant. The deck just fits my lifestyle perfectly. The Portal could just not offer me the instant gaming that the Steam Deck offers. The fact that I haven't got to wait to load into a game and then hope that actually the connection's going to be okay. Because like I've said in previous videos, I've got decent internet, but sometimes, the picture quality and the latency given to me on the Portal really, really annoyed me. And one of the big factors that I went with the Steam Deck was the OLED screen. screen. Yes, the Legion OS had a higher resolution, faster response time at 120 Hz compared to the OLED's 90 Hz. It was bigger, but after having an OLED TV in the living room, a PS Vita OLED for a brief time, you just know that OLED just gives that better overall picture. The colors, the contrast, the perfect blacks. To me, that is worth it, and that is why, I'm glad I went with the deck. It's just the screen alone is brilliant. Something I do somewhat find a bit frustrating is how quick the battery does go when playing those AAA games, or those games like Hitman, Mad Max. The battery does go quick, but I think there's a learning curve there for me. Is the fact that I've got to get used to game profiles. I can lower TDP on the deck just so I can get the most out of that battery. See, now I haven't gone down this road yet, but I think I will do soon. I'm going to need accessories for it. Yes, I've already bought a 512 gig micro SD card, but I feel like I'm going to need a dock soon. Granted, they're only about £20, $20, so it's not a huge expenditure, but it does add up. I was also thinking about getting a keyboard mouse, and I've not keyboard mouse gamed in maybe since Call of Duty 2, which I had on PC, and that's going back a long time. So that is something I do want to try with the deck. These things are going to add up, but is it going to enhance the Steam Deck experience for me? Yes, the deck has caught a lot of my attention, but am I going to be playing the PS5 as much? I spent a lot of money on that PS5 Pro, and at the moment it is simply just a Battlefield 6 machine. It's there, it's online, I come off it, it's done. Is it just going to gather dust? The Steam Deck has given me this big headache, and it's given me the idea of I'm just going to try 1 week of just playing solely on the Steam Deck and see how I get on. So here is my biggest regret about having a Steam Deck. I wish I got one sooner. I wish I didn't bother getting the Portal. I should have just gone straight to the deck. It's just that better overall package. It is having a games console, just that little bit more in the palm of my hand. And the games library is huge. And this is a big regret of mine, is the fact that I've spent so many years playing games like FIFA, Call of Duty, and Battlefield. The games I play are so narrow. It's literally a football or a shooter. Now, the Steam Deck has opened this up for me massively. I'm playing games like Suits for Hire, Hitman on there. There's just so much more. And I'm going back, I'm thinking maybe I should try these games. And this is the real issue with the Steam Deck for me as well, is the fact that it's making a massive backlog for me. When I can pick up games for around £1.20, like, wow, how can I pick up a game for less than a bottle of Coke? In a basket right now, I've got BioShock Collection for £6. I've got about 14 Star Wars games for £8. Like, this has given me such a headache as to how many games there are available. And this is a problem for me. Right, let me know if, you have regret. Do you have any regrets of getting a Steam Deck? Has it given you a headache with your game selection? Is your backlog growing? Or are you thinking, I got the Steam Deck, but I wish I went for a Windows device because most of my gameplay is, online. Let me know in the comments down below. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, we'll battle.